Yes. So one of the biggest challenges that were often faced in SaaS is the low adoption. Of course, that's what we're going to be talking about. Low adoption is something which we are seeing definitely with the customers that we're working with. Is something which is very overlooked. It's something which is not seen a lot. Can you come back, please, Jason? Thank
Yeah.
you. It's not seen a lot in terms of what user adoption means. So first of all, that's really important to define what we mean by user adoption. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that later on, because there's a difference between user adoption and change management. So we'll be going over that. So low adoption obviously means low renewals and no upsells, no cross sells, and obviously that can lead to churn. So that's a big problem for SaaS companies, and many SaaS companies have a big problem with churn. The other really interesting thing is that in the customer life cycle, sales, when they're selling, they're based on the promise, they're based on hope. So the selling is based on the hope by the customers, whereas the renewals and the upsells, which are not taking place a lot of the time, are based on reality. And that's what we're dealing with in the world of customer success. We're dealing with reality, we're not dealing with dreams. And so that's our job. That's our job, to really help that magic take place. And the other biggest thing is, and we spoke a lot about this very recently. We had a French speaking summit here in Paris a month ago. We spoke a lot about value. Value is a big topic right now in customer success. It should have been a big topic many years ago, of course, but it's something for which we've been burying our heads in the sands. And value, that is the real driver to retention. It's the real driver to upsell and cross-sell. But of course, you cannot have value without having the adoption in the first place. So that's what we're going to be looking at as well. Now, there was a recent study by Gartner, it was last year. 63% of users discontinue their use of SaaS and technology if they haven't perceived any value for their jobs. So this is key. But of course, we cannot get the value without the adoption. That's what we're going to be looking at. So without further ado, let's go on, please, to the next slide, Jason.
Okay. So just wanted to add a little industry perspective here as well, too. And as many of you know, that this is a growing awareness here that just having a great product alone doesn't get it done. And Greg Danes, who I hope many of you know, did a webinar and shared some stuff recently that I really resonated and really appreciated. And the thing that he said that stuck with me is technology does not produce results. Customer behavior change produces results. And really what we're looking at there is getting people to change how they do their job on a day-to-day basis, to embrace the technology, to use the potential of the technology. And Greg shared his 3 laws of customer retention, which I thought were great. Customers stay to get results. And customers get results because they change their behavior. And then finally, customers change their behavior because they know why and how to change. And I think that why and how is really what's missing from a lot of customer success efforts today. And that's really an area where we see the greatest need and the greatest opportunity for SaaS vendors and customer success teams. So let's just jump in a little bit more here as well, too, and look at really sort of the adoption challenge. And having a great product isn't enough. You can have the best product in the world or the best service, but that alone doesn't guarantee success. And it's no longer possible to just compete on feature function. And that may work a lot for the initial sale, but not completely. But it certainly won't work for the renewal. Because as Sue mentioned, this is the reality, this is the experience. And it's effective usage that really makes the difference. And you need to get your customers to adopt your product in a way to create perceivable value and ongoing value. And if they don't change their behavior and they don't use your product, they won't see the value. So the critical path there is that behavior change component. And really understanding that results comes from the behavior change, not from the technology alone. So that's really just to sort of reemphasize just how important this is, that it doesn't matter how great your team is, your product is, your onboarding methodology, all this great stuff. If your customers aren't changing how they do their jobs to use your technology, you're going to fail. Sue?
I think it really summarizes, and this is why I'm still in software 25 years later. And you know my skills with software, Jason, right? For me, software is not about the tech. Software is about the fleshware, right? And this is what it's all about: changing people's behavior, changing their ways of working, business as usual. That's what it's all about. And that's why I'm still here 25 years later. So that's showing my age. Okay. So, what are some of the challenges, right? For customer success teams, what we are witnessing is that there's this enormous knowledge gap. So customer success teams, they often are very astute on the product itself. They know the product inside out. They know all about the bells and whistles, the features and functionalities. But not many CS folks have had the training or have the knowledge or even the experience about what change management means, right? Or user adoption. So that's the first thing, lack of expertise. So we tend to bury our heads in the sands, I think, and just talk about the things that are kind of tangible. And the tangible thing is the tool. So a lot of our conversations around the tool, and it's not around all the human aspects, which are the invisible part of the iceberg, let's say, because it's less tangible. And to be honest, it's really tricky to talk about and to start measuring things around all those aspects. A second challenge is, well, it's just the assumption that many of your customers who are buyers of SaaS know what to do. You know, we've seen a proliferation of SaaS over the last years, over the last 10 years, you know, it's just exploded. So on average, a company with over 1,000 employees has 36 pieces of software. So that's enormous. But it's not because they've got more software that they are more experienced in what to do with it. So a lot of the software becomes shelfware. It's not used. It's not exploited. So let's not assume that because software is everywhere, that people know how to use it. It's quite ironic as well, because I remember back in the days, you know, the on-premise days, when ironically, we probably did more effort around the human side of technology than now. We think because SaaS is more accessible, a lot of it is plug and play, that because it's plug and play, the human is plug and play, but it's not. You can have some very easy piece of software, easy peasy, but the change management gap behind that software is enormous. So we mustn't forget that, right? And the third aspect is the accountability, right? So, you know, when people hear, especially companies who've never heard the word customer success, they hear this word and think, hey, great, this company is going to lay out the red carpet and do everything for me. But no, we need to really make sure that the customers are held accountable for doing different things, different activities. And that's really important because they should be responsible and understand what that means, responsibility, right?
Yep, absolutely. I think that's so important. And, you know, Sue, to that point, one of the things I've often seen too is people assume because tech is user friendly and they can easily navigate the application, that people will embrace it into their day-to-day work. And I'd like to make a distinction as well between, you know, how people use social media. They use it for their own personal enjoyment, relaxation, whatever purposes, but they fit it into their personal working style however they want. With enterprise B2B applications, it's not about getting one person to use the system. It's about getting everyone to coordinate their behavior together. And that's why the change management piece is so key.
Yeah.
So let's switch now and we'll talk at a high level, some of what is it that we actually need to do here? What are some 3 elements that we can change here as part of our customer engagements to do this? And I'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail and Sue will share some practical examples here. And really, there's 3 components that we see that really helps. One is that customer education piece and really making sure that you're addressing with the customers, educating them on the why, but more importantly, educating them on the how. What are the steps they should be taking to drive change in their organization? How can they get their people to embrace technology and perform their jobs differently? How do they get their people to adopt a new process flow and workflow using your technology? Because without that, you won't go very far. And then how do you scale this at mass? And you know, getting 1 or 2 people to use the system is it's different and it's a little bit easier, but it is different than trying to get hundreds or thousands of people across your organization, across different time zones and geographies and business units. It requires a more concerted effort. And then the next piece is enablement, really making sure that customers have the tools and processes they need to quickly and easily drive this change in adoption and to be able to sustain it. And then, as you mentioned, the absolute critical part is the accountability, making sure that they're aware of it, that they're committed to it, and that they're actually doing that and helping hold them accountable. So I'll jump into the first one in a little bit more detail and talk about the education piece. Most customers really don't understand change management and adoption. And Recently, I was on a project filling in as the interim customer experience VP and getting hands-on with a lot of customer calls directly. And it was amazing as we were talking with new and existing customers, how few of them really had any understanding of what change management is or how to do it. They may have heard me do a little bit of training, but they didn't really know how to drive change, and they didn't know how to sustain it, and they didn't know how to sustain adoption. So now if your CS team is just saying, oh, you've got to do some change management, you've got to drive this, if they don't know how to take that forward, they won't. And many of these people were busy with day jobs and with other things as well. So you need to look at that. And you can do things like a comprehensive e-learning, not on your product, but on change and adoption practices to enable customers to fill this critical skill and knowledge gap. You can do things like live trainings, coaching, how-to guides, a whole bunch of reinforcement things, whatever you would normally put in customer education piece around your product. You then also need to include that organizational change and adoption, because without that, you don't get that usage that leads to renewals and things. Sue, do you want to share an example for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, around education, what we've seen a lot is the implementation of what we call a customer academy. And within that customer academy, there are lots of different resources which are put into place around user adoption acceleration, change management. But the resources in there are not just related to the product. Those resources are product related, but also to change management. So just for a few examples around the product, many companies are actually adopting more and more product-led growth approach, where they're actually introducing funneling directly into the product with avenues which different users can take depending on some kind of online check-in list, which enables to segment their persona needs, right? So that's funneling. There are other examples where you can have a welcome screen as well, which will segment customers based on their immediate needs to get their first time to value. Another thing is some kind of very simple onboarding checklist, which really gets your users up and running, doing all the things that they need to configure eventually, and to really get that first time to value. So those are just some of the tips around the product. But what we're also seeing is tips around what you need to do depending on your role at the customer around the tool. So you can attribute roles, right? You have a role for an administrator, a role for a project manager, a role for a champion or sponsor, whatever it is, and have guidelines in this customer academy so that each of the different users have a specific definition of what they should be doing around the roles, right? So those are just a few examples. What is also a really great idea in terms of education, because that's you as a vendor helping your customer, but what works really well is self-education. And self-education is when you put into place like communities or forums where your customers can actually speak to each other and learn from each other. And that's amazing. You know, we had one customer where they had a specific type of population persona. And self-education is when you put into place like communities or forums where your customers can actually... Yes, I could see myself in the background speaking. Who's this voice from God here speaking in the background? So yeah, with these communities, that's a great example of how customers can educate themselves. So if you haven't done that already, it's really recommended.
Awesome. That's great, Sue. So let's talk about the next piece then in a little bit more detail here. And that was enabling customer adoption. And I think this is again, one of the key components. So once customers understand the why, then they get into the how, and now they're getting into the actually doing. So what are those things that you can do? And one of the things I've seen so many times is that customers today, or customer success teams today, everything's product focused. Here's how to navigate this. Here's some in-app information about a new feature, a new function, how to navigate the application, or how to set this up, or short little videos that you can do on how to load data or do a report or whatever it needs to be. But they're not including adoption-focused resources into the customer journey. And that might be, what are the things that you need to do to plan for and conduct a change management effort? Here are some templates or content around the proper way to communicate the messaging around this. Here are some other things that you can do to actually help create executive action plans, those sort of things. So there's a lot of resources that you can make that if you make it once and scale it out to your customers, all of your customers, it will make it easier for them. And you can tailor those to either industry or enterprise size or some of those things. And again, you can template some of this process to make it faster and easier for customers to do what they need to do once they have that education. The next piece is adoption coaching. And this is, I think, is a really important piece as well too, because your customers, as much as education helps, they will have questions. They will have things that come up. They will not sure if this is the right way or the wrong way to do that. They want to learn from other people's mistakes and other people's experience. So giving them a forum where they can actually go in and talk to people who have done this before. And this can be a great component of, if you have a customer community platform or other things, to give some coaching focused on the adoption pieces. You can do live sessions with an adoption expert or facilitator once a month, twice a month, once a week, whatever it needs to be, depending on the size of your customers and your organization, where they are, to really give them that forum where they can get their questions answered, feel confident, and learn from others. But also, by giving that forum and making that information available to them, it keeps their attention focused on the need to continually drive change and drive adoption, not just at the initial onboarding and implementation, but year over year as you move forward. And then the final piece, dedicated specialists. You probably have a professional services team if you have enterprise customers, or if you have some white glove customers that need extra service around the product or the implementation or the data loads and configurations, all that great stuff. But you may not necessarily have a dedicated team and experts around organizational change, user adoption, how to build it, scale it, and maintain it year over year. And this is where your customers are breaking down. So if you don't have that service offering yet, you should figure out how to offer that, whether it's build it in-house and with your team, maybe add that to the plate of your customer success folks for white glove enterprise clients, or partner with experts to do this. And for years and years, people doing large like CRM or SAP implementations, they've always said, oh, we need to have experts on the product who can come in, and third-party vendors that can do this. And most savvy vendors will also have a vendor or a professional services team focused on the change and adoption, and not just the training piece as well too. Sue, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think there's an example which is great, which we've done several occasions, is to provide a sponsor kit to the managers, the direct managers of the users. So that's really powerful, because in any change management context, especially with software deployment, the biggest lever of making sure that change management and user adoption takes place is with the immediate managers. They might not be the users themselves of the tool, but they have a vested interest that is taking place. So providing them with a kit, a sponsor kit, is a great way, because you can give them lots of different ingredients in this kit. So for example, in this kit, you can include like a dashboard for what should be the value metrics that they should be following. So the value metrics, have they perceived value around their investment, and what do those value metrics look like? You can include a methodology. So we have a methodology as well, which we call AMPM, and which we always include for the managers of teams of users. AMPM meaning activity metrics and performance metrics. So it's something which is customized to each context and for each manager. We can also, and we have done this in the past, for those of you who are probably familiar with a framework, change management framework called ADKAR, which means awareness, desire, knowledge, autonomy, and reinforcement. So these are the steps by which individuals go through on a psychological level in order to achieve performance goals. And so we can enable the manager to use this in a special tool which we've designed, and which enables them to detect detractors and promoters of whatever it is that they're trying to deploy in terms of software. Another ingredient of this kit is a communication plan. So what are the key messages to convey? What is the buy-in that they need to create around this? And what are the messaging convectors? And how to deal with detractors. You always get detractors, you always get people who are reticent to adopt this new tool and probably keep on to a previous tool, right? So these are just some of the things. And again, you see, we're going beyond the product here. And what we're talking about are all the human factors around the adoption of the product.
Yep, that's so important. Those are great, Sue. Thank you for sharing those. And then the final piece that we talked about as well was the accountability for driving adoption. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this that I was amazed when I've been working hands-on with buyers of software, and especially in my interim role, but with other organizations as well too, that there's so little discussion and commitment with the customer about who in their organization is going to be accountable for driving success in their organization, who's going to be accountable for driving adoption. So one of the first things that you can do, and we in our e-learning course that we've built around adoption, we talk about the first thing is defining success, then having an owner for it. And you can define success during the sales process. And if you're not doing it there, definitely during the onboarding process. And during that sales process, getting a senior executive at your customer's location to say, I'm going to be accountable for making sure this is delivering value to our organization moving forward. And one of the things I often say to executives on buyer sides of software is that if you see low adoption numbers in your organization, that is a sign that you have more work to do internally to change behavior and to focus on adoption. And that should be your internal metric, because only you, as the buyer of the organization, can drive that adoption. So talking about it as well during the sales process, one of the things I really love about this is, as you're getting into a more competitive SaaS landscape, comparing feature function, that's only part of the story, but having a discussion with the customer around what it takes to be successful, to drive change, to drive adoption, and get that perceived value that they're looking for, and saying, and here's how we help you do that. That's a big differentiator for a SaaS vendor. So if you have an adoption and change effort as part of your onboarding program, as part of your customer success program, that is very distinctive compared to many of your competitors, and it de-risks the buying decision. But anyway, coming back here, getting that commitment right up front for what they're going to do, and then going through and saying, how are we going to measure adoption and monitor it? And as Sue mentioned, the AM, PM, it's great. With the AM metrics, they're usually leading indicators, say we're doing the steps that we know will lead to value. And you can, in your early QBRs, you can talk about, are we on track with our adoption? Are we doing the right activities to drive that? And how do we know? And then going through and looking at the PM, the performance metric, those lagging indicators of value, those should be in every QBR, and having that discussion around this. And if you find issues with your AM metrics, I guarantee you down the road, you will have issues with your PM metrics. So really making sure that you're staying on top of that and having that discussion. And then the final thing that I want to suggest out there too is really aligning incentives. And this is a lot talking about making customer features and access to discounts or future changes or things of that nature contingent on the customer taking the action that will create value in their organization. And we did a webinar on this called Ideal Customer Behavior. You can check out the QR code to see the replay. But the key concept here is you don't give away value. You exchange value for value creating behaviors with your customers, and making sure that they are incentivized and aligned and actually executing against achieving the things that will drive adoption, so that they get results, so that they renew, and that they create that playing field where you can expand your accounts. So just a few things to think about there. Sue, do you want to give us some examples?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to also talk about what you were saying with the sales process as well, because we've helped a lot of our customers actually put into place a value selling methodology. So, for example, the MEDIC, and you were talking about the performance metric. So in the MEDIC, the M means metrics. So the sales up front are actually helping the customer to verbalize at least the performance metric, which is short term. So it's usually the first time to value. And this is helping the customer to be accountable, because the customer is then verbalizing themselves, okay, I want to achieve this first time value metric within the first 3 months after my onboarding, for example. And you're also helping them say, right, if you want to achieve that metric, these are the activity metrics which you should be measuring with your team to make sure they're doing those in order to arrive at that performance metric. What I think is really important is making sure that right from the outset, you're verbalizing that your customers are accountable for their own heroism and their own success. That's really important, right? The winners, and I'm talking about winners because we're about to have the Olympic Games, obviously, here, which is starting tomorrow. And so the winners, the people who will be winning the gold medals, they put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and they've been practicing for the last 4 years in order to get those medals, right? It's the same thing for our customers, right? For our customers, in order to be successful, they have to put a lot of work in, right? And it's not just customer success who's going to lay everything on a silver plate. They should understand that in doing this work themselves, they will then become the heroes and the heroines of their own context. It's not you, the CS, who is the hero or the heroine. You are just somebody who is in the stage wings, gently prompting them with all the best practices, all the benchmarks, all the data, everything because you're expert not only in the product, but also expert in the environmental business context, right? So that's really key. And then when you get those success stories, it's them who shine on the stage. It's not you. You're in the stage wings. Of course, you're happy for them, but it's not you as the hero or the heroine. So that's really important. And I think it comes back to also the notion, this is really key, of creating roles around your tool. And for each of those roles around the tool, say, this is what you need to do in order to be successful. We know this because we have the data, we've benchmarked it with all our other customers And we can even give you the data around what's happening in this vertical, that vertical. And over time, you enrich this data. And if you can, and it's not always the case, if you can, you can actually benchmark the data and send this data to your customers. This will be amazing because customers, they love to see how they stand compared to the market. And that's always motivating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's just the three components that we want to share in the time that we have today. Sue, do you want to kick us through this next piece as well too, which is how to do it?
Yeah, so how to do it. So there are three main options of how we can go about this. The first one is obviously invest internally. So you either hire an expert or train the team members in change management and user adoption. So what you can do is, there are lots of resources on change management, lots of books on change management. I've been doing change management for the last 20 years, and there are lots of methods. You've probably heard of the method called ProSci. So you can gen up on that and learn all about that. And I would recommend having somebody in-house. It could be one or two members of your customer success team, for example, who will then become the experts in change management. And they become like your reference internally. So you could then have like lunch and learn sessions around change management, around user adoption. You could subscribe to, different training sessions around change management, different videos, and really create some kind of collateral internally for you as a team and internal different stakeholders to understand change management, but also over time, which you can then actually communicate to your customers. We're talking about the Customer Academy just now. So you can create this collateral, create different resources, which can be tailored over time for each type of persona as well. So you can have this segmentation based on customer needs. The second option, of course, is to partner with experts. There are experts with whom you can collaborate who have change management and user adoption software experience. Obviously, Success Chain, that's our case, but this is something which you could probably consider. Jason's going to talk to you a little bit more about what we're putting into place around e-learning, coaching, and consulting around that. And then the third option is a hybrid approach, which I think is a great idea, because what you can do as you're learning more about change management, becoming more confident around change management and how you can help your customers with their own change management, I think it's great to probably have this hybrid approach where you're creating this center of excellence for change management internally, which is the first option, and also having external expertise as well to help punctually. So Jason,
Absolutely.
over to you. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so just to share a little bit more information about the Success Chain approach and what we've done to help give you some ideas. So one of the things that we've built out, and we started to partner with some other software vendors, and they've said, hey, this is a real issue and a real challenge for them. And they said, we would love to have an e-learning course that we can give to our customers as part of their onboarding process, so that, or maybe even some of the sales process for some other folks, that says, how can we educate our customers on change management and user adoption? Really addressing that why and how for our customers, as well as for our internal team. So if we want our CS team to be able to speak about change and adoption and they don't have those expertise, we need to learn how to do it. But we also need to make sure we get that hands-on learning directly into the folks who need it the most, and that's our customers, who are the ones who can actually drive adoption of our platform in their organization. So we built an e-learning course available now for either CS teams or for partners that you can share as part of your onboarding program or give to existing customers that may be struggling with adoption. That really helps them. And I've seen many times where software vendors make the mistake of, oh, I've got a customer that I'm worried about, they're not going to renew, or they've got low adoption. I'll try and train them more on the product. Product training isn't necessarily your issue. It may be part of it, but it's definitely not the whole issue. And really what they need to have education on is how to drive change and adoption in their organization. And it doesn't matter if they're the executive or the frontline administrator trying to do it. They need to understand these processes. So that's one of the things that we all built. The next piece of this service, and we call it Adopt Chain, our partner program, is a group coaching piece. And as we mentioned, your customers and even your internal staff will have questions around change and adoption. They're going to need things answered. They're going to need real-time answers. Do I do it this way or that way? What does it look like? And by offering those group coaching services to your customers, what maybe it's once a month, twice a month, whatever it needs to be, you give them that forum where they can be aware of it, they can get questions answered, and they can move forward faster. So we've built a program where we can deliver those coaching sessions to your customers so that they get the access to the expertise that they need. And then finally, Some of your customers will also need consulting services. And this is more, again, towards your larger enterprise customers or folks who just don't have the capacity in their team, but they may have budget where they can say, we're making a big investment in software. We need it to be successful. We know change management is important, but we don't have the resources internally or the expertise to do it. Bring us someone that can help. And Success Chain has partnered with other organizations to help drive adoption of software into their customer organizations. If you'd like to learn more about our Adopt Chain program, you can go to our website, or you can just use this QR code to learn a little bit more about it. We'd love to have a conversation with you to see how we can help you drive success in your customers. To that end, we've also put together a special offer right now that we want to share with folks. As it relates to our e-learning piece, we know a lot of people have questions. Well, how do I do this to my customers? And do I have the budget for that? And what does it look like? And there's basically 3 ways that you can share our e-learning course with your customers. The first is you as a SaaS vendor can purchase the course from us and provide it to your customers as part of their onboarding, maybe during the sales process. And for that piece, you can give it to them for free. You can give it to them at a largely discounted rate, however you want to handle it. But we would bill you directly for any licenses that you give away. And we do volume price discounting so that the larger the number of e-learning courses that you give to your customers, the lower the per unit price that we charge. And it's on a scaling basis there. And we're happy to meet with you to share what that would look like. The second piece is, hey, we'd like to make a little money off this. We don't want to just promote Success Chain. Great. If you share the e-learning piece with your customers, we have an affiliate program for individuals or for a company. And we're happy to give you up to 20% off of any of the e-learning courses that anyone buys from us. And it's very easy to do. It's built into our LMS. It's no fuss, no muss. Just here's a link with your code, send it out. And then the third piece may be, I want my customers to take this. We don't have the funding to do this ourselves and to pay for it, but I don't need a referral fee. What I would need instead is a discount that I can provide to my customers to incentivize them to complete the course. And we're happy, instead of a referral fee, we can give you 20% off to share that out with your customers and give a coupon code for you. So those are 3 easy ways that you can provide this education to your customers. And for a limited time, we know that you're like, well, I don't want to say send something until I've seen it myself. We're offering a 40% off discount for anyone who contacts us directly before July 31st of this year to go through. And we'll give you a code for up to 5 seats for 40% off. You can use them internally. You can share them with your customers and get feedback, whatever you want to do, to really see the power and potential of this to make it easier for your customers to adopt your product in their organization. So that's just a little bit about our special offer. And just if you have questions or you have more things that you want to talk about here, by all means, go ahead and visit our website, successchain.net, and we'll be happy to go and answer there. And then finally, just to wind up, because I know we're right at the edge of time here, if you have any questions, please go ahead and just type them into the LinkedIn chat window. Having a couple of technical issues here, but hopefully Sue will be able to see those as well too. And if you have questions either now or after the live stream ends, we're happy to reach out and share them with the group. So go ahead and give us a shout. So at that, I will end it all here. And Sue, if you have any thoughts or if you see anything, let me know.
I can't actually. I was seeing something, but I can't see it now. So I think we have a technical issue there, unfortunately, Jason. So what I would suggest is, if everybody can actually put their questions into the LinkedIn chat, and we'll take a look at them afterwards and answer them afterwards, because I can't see them either.
Okay,
for some reason.
Great.
And there was an echo there as well. There was a funny echo. You had like the voice of God as well. So I don't know what's happening, but such is technology, yes. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate your time spent with us and your patience. We'll be happy to answer your questions afterwards. So thank you, and see you soon, hopefully.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.